welcome to the replay of our August live stream, and we're calling this one Read My Lips. That intro seemed to get more dramatic this month as it went along. We've got our guest from the first one back again, Lynne Dougan. She had so much fun that she agreed to come back and do a second month with us.
We've already had a little bit of a rant between the three of us before we even went live. So, we'll see if we can do it.
We went live.
We'll do it again.
Before we get into anything, we just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting us on Coffee. We've got a little note at the back at the end of our podcast saying, if you like that, you can buy us a coffee. And a number of you have, which we're very grateful for. In fact, Marlene's been awake since Wednesday. She's drunk so much coffee.
Yeah, it's great, actually. And for us, it was pretty simple to set up. And it's really easy to use. And yeah, some people have just, it's been a one-off coffee donation, but we've also got some people who are now subscribing to us regularly through Coffee, and that's fantastic. Well, apart from anything else, it makes us feel a lot of appreciation, and that's kind of good because you're obviously enjoying us, so you wouldn't be giving us some cash.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah. And if anybody's wondering, I take mine black. Marlene likes a latte. Lynne, you're a decaf latte, aren't you?
Decaf, yeah.
Some people joining us in the comments as well. This is what we loved about last month's, was actually the interaction with people. So we'll just say hello to James Connolly, Ashbury, Wolf Pet. So welcome everybody, and feel free to join in the comments. What have we been up to in August? It's been a bit of a funny month, hasn't it? Because Parliament is in recess, Holyrood's in recess, the election's done and dusted, although we'll come back to what's happened since. What have you guys been up to in August?
I was up at Elgin. There was a rally up in Elgin. So, and that was really nice. We were so lucky with the weather because it was forecast to be raining, and we managed to avoid any rain whatsoever. So that always makes a difference, makes it a much pleasanter day. Plus, if there are speakers, after people had done their kind of march through the town and come to the park where we were having the rally at the end, I feel particularly sorry for the last speakers, because if the weather's dismal, people will understandably just disappear off. But we managed to have no rain at all, so that was it. I was there with the slates and the stones that we do, raising funds, as always, that goes to local food banks. So
you had a figure, didn't you? How much you raised?
We did. So what we collected in the bucket was £299.35.
Oh, so close.
We topped that up. I mean, it sounds like I only donated 65p. We give our time and other things. And I can't help myself, although I paint stones myself and I have a large collection of them already. I always get a couple more as well, just because I like them so much, and some of the creativity that comes out in them. So £300, we left that with Jane Loveland from Yes Murray, and she passed it on to the local food bank up there. So the local food bank deals with not just Elgin, lots of the smaller outlying villages as well. So that was a great help to them. So
yeah,
excellent. And I believe you saw a wee bit of Indy Bridges action as well.
I did. That was happening. We happened to be going through to Hamilton because my husband's buying a new van, and as we were driving along, and I always get excited, I was like, oh, look, the bridge is covered in flags, and there was a huge yes sign up as well, which originated in Clackmannanshire, was passed on to Ian McNeil, who does bridges for Indy, and they have repainted it. So there's this massive yes sign. So as you're on the motorway driving underneath this, it's unmistakable, all these flags on it and the big yes sign. So that was really nice. So
if you were on the bridge, well done. You've no idea what a lift it gives you when you see flags on a bridge. I love it.
I was just chuckling when you said going over because you're buying a new van. I was just about to crack a joke about, well, I hope you've got the accounts all straightened up about that, and the police aren't going to be putting tents up on your front green.
Yes, yeah. Well, we've done that ourselves to circumnavigate them. We just put a gazebo up and said, no need for tents. We've got a gazebo up.
Well, one of the things things I enjoyed this month was Fiona and I were asked to go and record an event that was being put on outside the Kelvin Grove Museums in Glasgow to commemorate the anniversary of Hiroshima. So this year it was the 79th anniversary. So we were there recording, but I just found it so moving because there was really good. There was someone speaking, and her father had been involved. He was there as in the Royal Navy, and he was involved in the aftermath of the Hiroshima bomb being dropped. And she was talking about that. I mean, it was just so moving. And there's one of the curators at the Glasgow Botanics is a Japanese chap called Hiroshima, and his mother was not in Hiroshima, but not very far away from it, actually, when the bomb got dropped. So he was there as well. And there's a whole plan being hatched, partly by Scottish CND, partly by Hiroshima, and partly by the Lord Provost of Glasgow. For next year, when it will be the 80th anniversary, there's a plan to create peace gardens in the main Glasgow parks. And the botanist has got seedlings which are from seeds from a ginkgo tree which was in Hiroshima and which survived. And he's bringing them along so that the plan is hopefully that these seedlings will, take root in Glasgow parks and they'll be there for the future. And especially for younger people. I mean, people our age, know about Hiroshima, but maybe younger people don't know so much. So I just found it really moving.
It was. And if who wants to watch that, it's on our channel. We did a little film of the event,
and it's nice having that connection you were saying with the plant. Kind of brings it all together, but it's so important that we remember these atrocities that one set of humans have done to another set of humans, and it's still going on today. You've got to think, when will we learn?
I know, and I mean, just to pick up on that, because there's a chap I follow on Twitter he's a former advisor to the Ukrainian government, so he's posting a lot about what's going on in Ukraine. There's lots of little snippets of films, and he had a photo up of a Ukrainian flag flying in Edinburgh. So it was Ukraine's Independence Day a few days back. So he just said, if people know of other places around the world where the flag's flying, put it in the comments on this sort of tweet thread. So I happened to be going for a walk through Victoria Park near me, and lo and behold, there was a celebration of Ukraine happening there. And I did get one or two photographs. So the flags were all up. There was loads of face painting going on. So there's loads of kids with Ukrainian flag on one cheek and Scottish flag on the other cheek. It was just lovely. And they've dedicated a new bench in the park that's got the colours of the Ukrainian flag on it.
Oh, that's lovely.
There was a police van as well, which is quite funny because they didn't have to do anything to the police. It was already in Ukrainian colours. That was quite good. It was just actually great to see it. So I posted these photographs on the Ukrainian guy's Twitter feed, and I had a look through, and there was so many from all over the world. Actually, people just taking on board what's happening and the situation that's over there, and not quite on the scale of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but pretty bad. So yeah, it is good that we remember these things. What about yourself, Fiona?
Well, history's been a bit of a theme for us, just because Parliament's been closed, and a lot of our battles happened in the summer, which is convenient. So we'd done the Battle of Falkirk a while ago, but the other one we've been looking at, we seem to have been talking about for months actually, it's been hard to get it on the schedule, has been the Radical Wars of 1820. I was actually out doing some filming at Bonnymuir, which is near Bonnybridge, and there's a memorial to the battle that was fought there. And unfortunately, this is what happened to me while I was out there filming. Now, obviously, you can't see this on the podcast version of this, but my car got stuck in, let's call it mud, in a field, in the middle of nowhere, up on a moor.
Oh yeah, I shouldn't laugh.
You shouldn't laugh because it smelt. It was kind of horse manure, a big pile of it. And my car's a front-wheel drive, it turns out. Who knew? And it just sank. But luckily, I was rescued by none other than Lynne, my heroine.
Great. Yeah, fantastic.
Who came along in her old van with planks of wood, which we managed to wedge under the wheels so I could get on it and then push it backwards. So that's the lengths we go to for our coverage of these events. The other thing I did, which was on a sort of mythical historical bent, was I was at the Edinburgh Festival for one day, and Stuart McHardy, who a lot of you might know as the Radical Scottish History, and he did this great session on mythology and the landscape and clues in the landscape as to what the old myths were. So we're hoping that we might, if Stuart happens to be listening, we'll be in touch with you, because we're going to invite you on the podcast to give us that session. I'm just having a look. Hashbury is showing off, I have to say, Hashbury. Slava Ukraini, and he's telling us about the Battle of the Shirts.
You're quite right, Hash. We didn't know about them. Maybe we should invite you on as well.
We'll add that to the list. And yes, you're right, Wolfpet. I did need more than a coffee after that adventure.
What about we were going to say a bit about listener feedback, aren't we?
Yes. It's great to have feedback from our listeners, and thank you to everybody who puts comments and likes and shares our stuff, because it really does help. Certainly YouTube's algorithm, if it thinks people are enjoying something, it'll show it to more people, which is great. We had a couple of people who had not quite criticism, I think perhaps suggestion, but it might be useful just to cover. One was about the historical stuff we've done. We had somebody who posted 2 or 3 comments on things saying, why are you bothering with all this historical stuff? Get out there and campaign for independence. To which I think we'd say our history is as important as anything else we do. And I don't know any independent country that would pay no attention to its own history.
Yeah.
If it's something like the reenactments we've been going to, I would argue that's current culture, like Falkirk putting on a day celebrating De Graham. They're doing that now. They're engaging their people and their community in something that's really important. So that's why we do it. And we're not going to stop doing it. We try and get the balance between politics and culture and history. But, that we're not going to stop doing the historical stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I was quite surprised at the remarks. I mean, to put it in context, we do mail shots out to, a few thousand people, but 3 or 4 thousand. And there's only a few of these comments coming back. Not like it's loads and loads, but it is interesting because the people obviously felt really strongly about it. And I sort of think, well, I feel really strongly in the opposite direction. But anyway, It takes all, doesn't it?
I think it's getting the balance, and the reason why we want independence as well relates back to that history. It's something that we had in the past that's been taken away from us. And we want to go back and look at, well, this is what's happened. We were a nation, we were a proud, strong nation before. And what happened that resulted in the current situation we've got, this union that we're in, I think it does need to be explained. I have to say that from my high school, we didn't get taught about Scottish history. My school was across from the Antonine Wall. No mention of it made whatsoever. All these kind of things. And even when I go to Skye a lot on holiday, and we walked out to a couple of the clearance villages, and we were doing it. They're in the guidebooks as well. So we were on one walk, and we met some English tourists who were there, and started talking to them, and they were like, so why are all these like ruins here? What is it? And I said, no, it's clearance villages. And they were like, what? I said, clearance villages. They were like, no, we need to explain more. I said, well, the people that lived here were cleared off the land by the landowners who put sheep on it because sheep was going to make them more money. And they thought it was horrific, but they'd never heard of it before. No. But again, likewise, lots of people in Scotland haven't necessarily heard of it either. But it doesn't take too long. If you speak to somebody a couple of generations back, they will have a family member that was cleared from the land.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, it's one thing, even if you know about the clearance, or at least factually what they
happened.
That it's a very different thing when you just take the trouble to, maybe walk half a mile or so to go to one of these abandoned villages, because I've done that, and it's heartrending. You know, it's like you're just walking and you can see the ruins of the houses. And one I'm thinking about was over on one of the islands on the other side of Mull. And, you know, you're walking past the old mill and there's millstones and they're just lying abandoned in the grass. And it is just heartrending that. And it's such a beautiful place. Now, it wasn't an easy life. Let's not romanticize it too much, you know.
Totally, no.
But still, it's just kind of gets to you when you see what was a little community working away, and then they're ordered off, and the thatches of their houses is set fire to afterwards, so they can't go back.
Some of them, people refused to leave, and people were burned inside their cottages. What I found interesting when I travelled when I was younger and over to the States was finding the Scottish diaspora and how much they treasure their history and culture over there. They'll do Highland dancing, speak Gaelic, all these kind of things, because they're so proud of their heritage as well. It's not tried to be drummed out of them over there to replace it with another history. They get to keep that and hold on to it.
Yeah, that's a big difference, isn't it? The sort of cherishing your history because you've got nobody trying to kick it out of you, as happened here. Yeah.
So there was something else that we got pushed back with. It was one of our topics, and I did it was about the two-child benefit cap and Labour not doing anything about getting rid of it, which they still are not. And so we did a hot topic of 15 minutes, various speeches from the Commons and things, and as a thumbnail kind of. But I did this one, which I thought was very. I just thought, oh, that's good.
Eye-catching.
That was eye-catching because, you know, not only is it the iconic figure of Oliver saying, "Please, sir, I want some more," and sitting in front with a rather comfortable-looking Keir Starmer, but then there's this pretty dark-looking, lowering figure of George Osborne behind Starmer, since it was the Tories who originally came up with the two-child benefit, and we got some pushback on that from. Again, it was only a couple of people. One of them I know through a Yes group, so I don't know him personally that well, but the other one I actually do know him pretty well. He's a Yes supporter, and he kept saying, "Oh, I don't think that's fair," and it's just simplifying it, and it's quite a complex thing. And I thought, well, it's true, it's a complex. Benefits are always complex, aren't they? Who you get, who gets them, and how you qualify, and how you apply and all that. It's sure enough, it's complex. But actually, I think it was more of a reaction to that image, because the image is quite strong. Anyway, it's not going to stop us using strong images for thumbnails.
I think sometimes the visuals and the creative ways of getting messages across are much more, well, maybe not palatable, because sometimes images can be very graphic, but they're much harder hitting, and they make the point, and they're easier to absorb. You just look at them, or you hear music and you find out a little bit about the music. I was just thinking earlier when you were talking about Hiroshima and thinking of the OMD song Enola Gay.
Oh yeah,
Enola Gay being the mother of the pilot who dropped the bomb, whose plane dropped the bomb. That was actually how I learned about it, because I'd given up on history by that stage at school. So different ways of learning it, but I think visuals and the cultural things and the creative things, they're another way to doing it without giving people reams and reams of facts and figures and things to listen to, and they just make a point succinctly. It's that old picture paints 1,000 words, isn't it?
Yeah.
Culture is really important as well, because it's not reading text and here's a 50-page document. It's about just conversations we have. I'm just saying an interesting comment from Woofpet there, saying different routes to becoming an independent supporter. Some come from discovering how we've been diminished and sidelined to where we are now, and some come straight from where we are now, and that's absolutely right. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And, I saw a wee thing talking about the Labour Party and Professor Richard Murphy on Twitter, and he's calling them Lino now, Lino Party, Labour in name only, because they bear no resemblance to the original, kind of socialist Labour Party with what they're doing.
Well, that's a very good link into our next item that we were going to talk about, because
I planned that.
Did you? Well done. Well done. So, yes, we've got the Parliament isn't back yet, and already, I don't know I'm sure everybody got these things through the door with just big things with change written all over them.
Yeah, I got masses of them.
I'm about to write to my new Labour MP and say, all the changes so far is either doing exactly the same as the Tories did or doing something worse. What a way to make a flying start. It's really dreadful.
Yeah.
And it's when they say, there isn't an £18 billion black hole that you keep claiming there is. It's actually 22 billion.
Yeah, and somehow that makes a difference. Well, we do have a little clip of that. And this is the first time I've seen Rachel Reeves in action. And what a style she's got about her. And we'll come back on to that in a minute. This is just a bit from 4 weeks ago, I think it was, when she was first trying to make that point that we weren't lying. And the first speaker is the new SNP MP, Seamus Logan.
We in the SNP repeatedly warned about an 18 billion hole in the Labour Party's spending plans. Now that you've confirmed that today, Chancellor, will you apologise to those voters in Scotland who supported the Labour Party leader in Scotland when he said, read my lips, no austerity? And will you also reverse the 9% cut in Scotland's capital allocation, please?
Chancellor?
I'm not sure if the honourable gentleman was actually paying attention. The £22 billion black hole is this year. The Institute of Fiscal Studies was warning about a black hole over the lifetime of the Parliament of £18 billion. No, those are two very different things that is being published today, above and beyond what anyone knew when we were campaigning in the election.
Everybody and their granny knew that there would be a multi-billion-pound black hole. Only the Chancellor seemed to be deaf and blind to the situation, but we knew she was going to be here explaining the sheer scale of it. When we raised this during the election campaign, we were told we were being misleading, that this was all mince. Well, we know now. And isn't it the case that cutting winter fuel payments to all pensioners seems and feels like Tory austerity? And what discussions has she had? What discussions has she had with the Scottish Government? Because she will know, obviously, that this is a devolved responsibility.
Hear, hear.
My right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary, briefed the Scottish Government today on these decisions, and to claim that this is austerity today, when we have just given a pay rise to more than 2 million public sector workers, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
So, I mean, snippy. And I don't know, did you clock that magnificent eye roll at the end of the first response?
Well, that gets us on to something I was going to talk about, because as I'm in the process of writing a letter to my new MP, which is now a Labour MP. Up to the beginning of the COVID, I was an advisor at Citizens Advice Bureau. So when it comes to things like winter fuel payments and pension credits, even though I haven't done it for some years, I kind of go, but hang on a minute. And so I thought, it's happened. They've taken the winter fuel payment away from most pensioners, but not all. But when you go to look at pension credit, out of every 10 people who are eligible for pension credit, only 6 people have applied and got it, and the other 4 have not applied, although they could. These figures are taken from various places, mostly Department of Work and Pensions. So I'm sort of thinking, well, okay, fair enough that the poorest pensioners are still going to get this winter fuel payment, but actually there's a lot of them, those poorer ones, who won't, because it'll be done, the decision will come through whether they get the benefit or not. The other thing about unclaimed pension credit is that these are UK figures, right? And they're again, the Department of Work and Pensions. So in the UK, there's 880,000 eligible families who did not claim And that's equivalent to more than £2,000 a year each for those families that they're just not getting. Now, the knock-on effect, if you call it that, is that that's a savings, works as a savings to the UK Treasury. And they've got £2 billion sitting in the Treasury, not more than they would have done because those people haven't paid. So there's £2 billion sitting in the Treasury because people haven't claimed the benefit. So I'm going to say that to my MP, because if you think about it, when they go ahead with this plan, so you only get winter fuel payment if you're on pension credits, one or two other things, but mainly that. Then they're also saying, well, we'll have a campaign to make sure that people who are eligible do apply. Fantastic. Okay, that's great. But that will cost them another £2 billion. And they're only saving £1.4 billion by doing it in the first place. So, you kind of think arithmetic doesn't work very well here. So anyway, because I was on the, DWP website, I also noticed that they had a campaign last year and they reckon they've caught benefit cheats worth up to 1.3 billion just from last year, and they reckon there's another 9 billion clawback that will happen over the next 4 years. Now, this was Sunak's government that set this up, so there's another 9 billion. That's call it 2 billion a year coming into the Treasury from going for benefit. People are defrauding their benefits. That's not a good thing. I'm not suggesting people should be doing it. And you would want to pull them up about it, but there's an awful lot more going on elsewhere for vast amounts of money that, all could be going into the UK Treasury, and maybe, they wouldn't have had to go ahead with this winter fuel.
Benefit fraud amounts to a tiny percentage of the claimant load. It's not most people on benefit, they're making do with what's not a generous amount in the first place.
Indeed, there is a good argument that maybe winter fuel payment, it shouldn't just be a universal payment, and it would be better to have it means tested in some sort of simple way, as long as it's a simple way. But that doesn't seem to be a very good way of doing it. And the other thing is that, most pensioners, so anyone 72 or older, don't even get the new old age pensioner. Because I'm one of them, we're still on the old pension, which I've kind of forgotten the difference, but it's it's significant. It's something like 25 or 30 pounds a week, actually. So all of that's kind of, going to kick in. And Fiona, you were saying to me the other day, plus in Scotland, it's not exactly that we pay more for electricity, but we have to use more because
of our weather.
Because of the weather,
well, and the lights are on longer.
Exactly. The lights are on longer, and I mean, I was sitting in our living room the other day, and I suddenly went, "God, it's hot in here." That's kind of hot. And actually, I realised my husband had put central heating on. He has MS and he feels the cold. His immune system's compromised. He really feels the cold. So he's not the only person in that situation in the whole of the UK. Everyone's going to be diminished by that. And it just seemed to be such a quick decision for actually a very small amount of money, really, considering what the UK Treasury deals with.
It's the way they talk about things as well, though, saying, benefit cheats. Well, how many of these people are actually doing it knowingly? Or how many people have made a mistake in filling out a form and they've unwittingly maybe been getting a little bit more than they're due because things have changed, conditions have changed? I listened to it a couple of months ago now, but it was on the radio, and it was a woman who was a full-time carer for her husband, and she's only allowed to earn so much. But if she ever got any overtime, it then dropped the amount of allowance she got for being a carer. And it was something like if she earned like £9 more than this. And they didn't just take away, they didn't just say, well, you've earned £9, so we're not giving you £9. She lost the whole benefit. So on the one hand, they're saying, oh, these people don't want to work. But you've got them in a catch-22 situation. If they do work more, they don't get the benefit. So it's balancing it up and looking at I can see why some people go, well, there's some people who don't need that winter fuel allowance. Yeah. There are plenty of people who do, though. And actually, the means testing, if it's not a simple way of doing it, the reason we don't pay for prescriptions in Scotland is because they looked at the economic case for doing means testing, and it was going to cost more to do means testing than it is just to make prescriptions universally available. And I think we need to get away from the free. It's not free. It's paid for. It's the way our government chooses to spend its money that we don't pay any more at the point we go and collect it. The thing I was going to say was just when Pete Wishart was talking in Parliament, and he said, that's just mince. I wonder how the use of the word mince is, how far is that understood? Is it a common term south of the border to say something's mince, meaning it's nonsense or it's rotten or it's rubbish, you know?
Well, it's in Hansard now, isn't it? It's not the first time, actually, it's been used.
I think that was a quote, actually, from Ian Murray, when the various people were saying, look, there's this big black hole. He'd said that's complete mince,
right.
as it turned out. Not complete mince.
Yeah.
Just one point, though, on when we were talking about means testing. Child benefit. There's an example of a really simple benefit, which is very simple to administer, but they decided to means test that. But they said that it's something like 50 grand income, the point at which it starts to, there's a taper, I think, and then you don't get it, which is a lot different from £12,000 or so from pensioners. They are on much, much less. This taper is actually going to affect them. Why the difference? I don't know. So talking about winter fuel, of course, the Labour government has just got elected by promising to keep all our fuel bills down. Various amounts being quoted. We'll come to one of them in a minute. But I don't know if anybody listened to Keir Starmer's speech today. Yet again, he was talking about GB Energy. But what he had to say about it this time contradicted what he said during the campaign. I know. Who would believe that?
Really not.
And Great British Energy will be owned by the taxpayer, making money for the taxpayer, producing clean energy and creating good jobs.
Just trying to clarify the extent to which it would actually be generating its own electricity, and that would all be publicly owned.
Well, no, it'd be an investment vehicle, so not an energy company. So it's an investment vehicle in the energy of the future. The money going into it would be public money, but used to trigger private investment.
It was not what it was promoted as.
So that was one of our hot topics while the election was going on. Any benefit that we're going to see from it, goodness knows when that's going to be. But this was what Pam Duncan-Glancy said when she was in conversation with Mary Black. Now, she's actually come up with a completely different figure for how much we're going to save, and she thinks it's going to happen right now, so we don't need to even bother about waiting for independence before we get the benefits.
Okay, we don't need to wait on independence. We can have that now.
Right, but what are you offering that is different from the Conservatives? Right,
GB Energy, bringing down bills by £1,400 a year, bringing 63,000 jobs to Scotland.
Mary wasn't convinced, was she?
No. Beat my face.
So she said it was 63,000 jobs in Scotland, was it? And how much per household? Or per
£1,400, she said, that would save on energy bills.
That would save?
That's what she said.
The average figure at the moment is only...
I know.
17.
1,200.
12 or so. I mean...
We'll keep that.
We'll keep that. Yeah,
we'll keep that clip in our archives.
That arithmetic doesn't seem to be very, very good either, really. Yeah.
We're just casting an eye down the comments. We've got some various Wolfpet and Hashbury, both quite prolific in the comments. No great love for Michelle Moan by the look of it. Oh, and Alan Crow, hi Alan, saying if you had to make a claim for the winter fuel allowance, I think a lot of people who don't need it wouldn't apply. That's absolutely true. I mean, this is the thing that gets me with people who, object to the bus passes and the free prescriptions.
And the baby boxes.
And the baby boxes. And you think, well, if you don't think you need them, don't apply for it. Pay the bus fare. You don't need to use a bus pass if you don't think it's the right thing to do. Being able to see the bigger picture of what we're trying to do as a society, there will be individuals who don't need it, but that doesn't mean that the rest of us shouldn't benefit. It's a strange mindset.
Yeah, and Hash seems to think that what Labour claimed was that they'd cut £300 per annum over the period of the Parliament. So I'm not sure where Pam's
1,400 comes from.
No, they just make up a figure.
It's not even a multiple of 300.
True. It was presumed. It looks like it was over at the Edinburgh Festival, doesn't it? And one of the shows over there. So anyway, and all this business about GB Energy got me thinking about energy prices again. Just to be upfront with this, I did quite a lot of digging into it, and then earlier this afternoon, Fiona and I had a wee go at seeing if I could explain it, and it was quite clear there was a big chunk in the middle that I'd get the gist of it, but I really couldn't explain it. And Fiona, an intelligent woman, she couldn't pick it up either. So we're not going to go into some of this. But there's some things that's just interesting, because there's a lot of memes around, aren't there, about Scotland and energy and how we pay much more than the rest of the UK. And some of it might be true that we pay more, but maybe not for the reasons that are sometimes floated in these memes. So, for example, if I just had a look at cost of electricity, so this is from current. The rate that we pay per kilowatt hour, it goes up and down a bit, but not a lot. It's not a huge kind of difference there. And then the daily standing charge often comes up on movement, social media bubble, at any rate, that we pay more standing charges, that cost us more. But if you look at that, well, we're certainly up quite high up there, but there are areas of the country that are paying more than us. Northern England, for some reason unfathomable, seems to be the highest. And there's people higher than us, and there's some lower than us. And maybe the one that's interesting, though, is London. Yeah, that's London. So it is true. It's certainly true that we pay a lot more than London. But most people in the country pay a lot more in London for their standing charges. So it's just kind of interesting when you kind of go, okay, well, is it true that we pay more? And why should that be? As far as I can make out at the moment, the only reason that for us paying more is because we use more. And even that, you think it's not like the rest of like Wales or the Southwest actually has particularly great weather either, but it's probably true that we do use more. But
we also produce a lot of it, though. That's the thing that infuriates me.
That's the thing that gets us, isn't it? It's just this kind of pricking going all the time. We're going, well, it's gone up such a lot last sort of couple of years, mainly because of Russia invading Ukraine. And we're producing all this, and why are we having to pay this much? Although that applies to the whole of the UK, not such to Scotland. But I think another interesting thing is to look, if we could compare London and Scotland and the rest of the UK there, but what about looking at comparing Britain with the rest of Europe and what they've been paying? So I got hold of those figures. So these are actually from last year, so they're not current, but if you want to look at the comparison, that doesn't matter too much. Great Britain was paying last year 48, these are euro cents, so cents, 48 cents per kilowatt hour. Whereas the European average was 30, so that's about 50% less. And if you go all the way down near the bottom, not actually even the bottom, but Norway, their amount that they were paying for residential electricity was a third of what we were paying over here. And that when you take on that kind of thing, you think, well, goodness, surely it's obvious then that if we were independent, we'd have our own market, our own wholesale market, we'd have our own wholesale spot price market. That's the thing I couldn't really properly explain, by the way, how the spot market works for energy. We could do it differently, as indeed, Norway is doing it differently. I mean, so I picked this up from Facebook, but I've checked it. It's a map of Scotland, inside an energy, a light bulb, and the wording is a small, energy-rich country of 5 million people on the shores of the North Sea has just cut its electricity tariffs to zero to help its people. It's not Scotland, but it could be. And then right at the bottom, P.S., it's Norway. So I saw that and I thought, is that really right? Because I didn't quite know what it would mean if the tariff was cut to zero. Would that mean they were paying nothing for their electricity? It's not as good as that. It's that the Norwegian government owns the Norwegian electricity grid. And after the Russian invasion, electricity prices went up because of the interruption in gas supply. So we kind of know all that's what happened in this country as well. The Norwegian government, via the electricity grid company, said, okay, we're not going to charge any suppliers anything for using the grid. So there had been a tariff on that, which would have been fed into the cost of electricity for a household. So the Norwegian government said, okay, that's now at zero. And there was a couple of other tariffs all to do with the grid that were just put down to zero immediately, just to help. And it was the Norwegian government helping the Norwegian people. And I kind of, you look at it and weep, because we could do that if we were independent. And actually, the other thing I discovered was that Norway has made a whack of money exporting electricity during this, because of course they're exporting it at a high price, although they're not charging the Norwegians that high price. And it all kind of rolls together, and they can do things like that for their own people, and we can't.
The national grid, and it's a real misnomer, because it's not a national grid as in it's owned by the nation. It's not owned by us. No. I think it's America, and yes, there is some like UK or GB like ownership of it, but it's people elsewhere making profit off at a cost to us. I mean, you've had some outspoken. I think is it Greg Jackson, who is the CEO of Octopus Energy, and he's been very sort of forthright in speaking out about Scotland produces enough energy, enough electricity, more than it needs for itself. So why are the people in Scotland paying more than people elsewhere when we're producing it all for ourselves? And that's the kind of thing that kind of sticks in your craw a little bit.
It does. Oh,
it's like we're making it. Again, it just takes me back to colonial times, where railway lines weren't built to connect cities in the colonies. They were built to ports so they could extract all the resources that they wanted. And once they've done that, and that colony is no use to us anymore, well, then it's like, well, cheerio, we've got all your uranium or your rice or whatever it is.
I mean, that's exactly right. Exactly right. At the moment, even if the UK government wanted that to happen, equivalent thing to happen with tariffs for using our grid, they couldn't make it happen, because they can't tell a company to go and do it. Whereas the Norwegians, it's their company, so they just got on with it and
make that decision.
So he's got electricity prices are determined by the cost of gas. Guess where electricity is generated from gas? You see, that was the bit that I was trying to explain earlier to Fiona. And I've got some really nice graphs, but it was just a little bit complicated. That is at the crux of it. And as soon as the demand for electricity goes up and over and above what we produce from renewables and nuclear, then suppliers have to start buying it from electricity made from natural gas, and it's very, very expensive. And it's just a stupid system.
Companies making or generating electricity from gas would not be profitable, so that it's been set so that they can be profitable. Whereas in any other ordinary business landscape, they wouldn't be competitive. They would no longer be in business. But
I don't think it's quite that, because there is just there's a finite amount of renewable energy that's available at any given day, and these spot markets, they do it it is like it's every half hour, and a supplier's going, God, what do I need to go and buy it. I mean, must be terribly stressful. So there is just a finite amount of renewables available at any one day. Same for stuff that's coming from nuclear, so generated. So at some point when the demand goes up, they do have to use gas. As yet, well, they do if you're in the UK. Has to use gas. If it was just us in Scotland, we could probably get away with just using renewables and maybe a bit of nuclear, but we wouldn't have to go into the spot market and buy electricity made from natural gas at these high prices. We'd also just have a better system for doing it.
When you look at your charges on your electricity bill, you pay a little bit extra if you want to go for a green tariff, so you're getting yours from renewable. So that should be cheaper, but it's not. It's pegged to the price of electricity that's generated by gas, as I say, because otherwise then these gas generating electricity companies would not be competitive and people wouldn't use them. They wouldn't make any money. They would no longer exist. There wouldn't be a need for them.
Well, there would be a need because if the demand is there, they have to meet it. And the demand in England is there. There's not enough renewables and nuclear to.
But then surely the charge could be when we're using electricity that's been generated by gas, it's at a higher rate, but it's not. We're charged at a price as though all electricity has been generated by gas, whereas that's not the case.
Exactly, and that's what Hashbury was getting on with, saying because they're linked to the price of gas, and that needs to. I mean, to be fair, even Sunak's government was talking about looking at ways of separating that out so that the cost of renewables, and presumably they do it for nuclear as well, was not linked in so tightly to the cost of electricity from gas. So they were talking about it, and other people are coming up with ideas. But, it's been like that for a long time.
What's that expression? Yet. Talk is cheap.
Unlike that. Yeah.
I know.
Fascinating though this
yes I know
this topic is, and we could talk about it for a long time. Just to round off, there's a few events coming up in September that we just wanted to flag up to people because obviously September is the 10-year anniversary of the referendum, so there's quite a few people marking it. 14th of September is the Hope Over Fear rally in George Square. 18th of September, the actual anniversary, it's a Wednesday. Believe in Scotland are organising a rally at Holyrood, and they've got all sorts of cool plans for lighting up buildings and doing Yes by Donkeys kind of projections and things, as well as speakers. So that will certainly go into...
Was that Yes by Donkeys or Led by Donkeys?
Led by Donkeys, yeah. Either way. So we're going to be at that one, aren't we, Marlene?
We could have our version of that. It could be called Donkeys for Yes, couldn't it?
Yeah, but I think that would be twisted around and have the Mickey taken out of it.
The 21st and 22nd, the weekend of that, there is in Dunfermline, the Scottish Currency Group are having a conference. Our podcast next week, not this Friday, the Friday after, will be us chatting with Tim Rideout and Ian Stewart about the conference, and they've got some phenomenal guests at that conference, really interesting speakers. We're really very interested to see what they have to say. So that's just 3 of the events we know about. If people know of others, then by all means let us know and we'll share them. I see Wolfpet's just said the donkeys are for no. Yeah, that's right, the no donkeys.
Oh yes, that's great. That's really good, Wolfpet. I'll remember that one.
Yes, you're right, Hashbury. The 18th of September rally is an evening event. It's a 7:00 start at Holyrood, and it only goes on till 8. So anybody who's travelling or has been working or whatever, you've got time to maybe get something to eat and then fetch up to it. And it's not too bad for getting home again afterwards. 8 o'clock is not too bad. So that, which is probably longer than we intended, but just so much to rant about when you've got a Labour government lying through its teeth.
Can I squeeze a little thing in?
Yes, of course you can.
Earlier on, I think Wolfpet and I think Hashbury had comments up about Kamala Harris's campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't manage to flag them up here, but I've been following a Twitter account called Kamala HQ. That's taken from the heading of her Twitter account. What it says is, it's very simple. The aim of that account is providing context. Providing context. And there's another bit underneath that says, this is the rapid response page to provide context in the race for the presidency of the United States. And I saw that and I thought, oh, that's what we've needed in Scotland for ages. We've, whether it's ScotGov or the SNP, they need a rapid response page or pages to provide context for things. And, you get, like there was that, the recent one about a whole, kerfuffle in Scottish media about how ScotGov are are going to put back the peak prices on the railways. Now that's true, but there's no context given for it. And I just thought, well, there is a Twitter account called SNP Media, but it doesn't work like that. It's the kind of thing they could be coming in and just highlighting what was said and then putting in the context. And I just so wish that could get off the ground, and I think it would help immensely. And if they put it out, and the rest of us can share it round and talk to people. And
John Robertson's very good at putting context in.
He is, yes, he is, and I mean he obviously spends his days doing that. So you think that the SNP could hire someone to spend their days, even though they just read what John had put up, and then they
just hire John.
They put it out.
There has been stuff like rebuttal stuff coming out, but it's how far does it go, and how do you get it out to the general public? And even things on Twitter, I mean, I believe in the UK, there's only about 4% of people on Twitter. So it's not the masses that are getting that information.
No, that's true. But that 4% can share it.
Then promulgate it, yeah. But again, it's how do they share it? Because political content on Facebook, which we tend to use a lot, is damped right down. Meta have, done their studies, and people don't want to see political stuff. So it's only about 3% is getting onto feeds. So it's how do you put something that's political out? Because people have obviously said we don't want to see it in our feed, so it's not making it out to people. And if I share pictures of my new cat, I'll get maybe not hundreds of likes, but I'll certainly get more likes than if I put out something about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true enough. It's just that I do follow the SNP Media Twitter account, and there's maybe, for every tweet that they put out, there's a dozen coming out from Kamala Harris's team. Now, I know they've got money. She's just raised almost $500 million, so obviously there's money there to do it. But, I just think it just could be so much better, and so much, I don't know, lost opportunities that go by, and especially just now, because it does seem to me that since the general election, the mainstream media, especially up here in Scotland, it's like something happens down south, they'll go and talk to Anna Sarwar about it.
Oh, yeah, it's been dreadful.
Sometimes that's fair enough. I mean, it was probably fair enough to go and talk to him about the riots. But it's not always. It just seems to be, we need to get the view from Scotland, and we go to the Labour leader in Scotland. We'll have to have another live stream and talk about
the battle for winning hearts and minds goes on. And if you are looking to do it through media, we don't control the media. So that's why the likes of this your podcast, that is getting out to people, because that is something that's
true.
We are controlling. Yeah. We can get that out, and and at some point we'll get to that tipping point where more people are seeing accurate information, they're seeing context, so that they're not just reading these 3-word slogans and getting a headline and jumping to conclusions from what that headline says. They're looking actually into it a bit more and thinking critically about it. And I think that's, there's a whole lot of people that need to be given
just to give people information. Yeah. If you just give people information, they might do a bit of critical thinking. They might just get shocked or stunned, or they might really enjoy it, and then they might go and talk to their pals about it, in the pub or at home or at their work or whatever. So it's just getting good information out there. It is why John does what he does, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Anyway,
there's that little I don't know if it was a meme or something, but saying that there's been research done that shows presenting people with facts will not get them to change their mind over something that they're believing the opposite of it, and the person goes, "Oh, I don't believe that."
I probably would have said that, actually. But then go back to those 2 little videos that Fiona put up a wee while back on the programme here, where she had Stammer what he said today and Stammer what he said a while back. You put those right next to one another, right beside. Now, in a way, it's facts and words, but it's more that they're just next to each other. They're juxtaposed, and that does have an effect. That goes into people in that kind of more gut way, really, doesn't it?
Yes, but again, it's getting that out to people. so that they see it. They're seeing it presented like that, so there's no dispute in it. Here's what he said, day one, flip. Here's what he said another day, flop.
Anyway, thanks to our people in the comments who have stuck with us all this time. Thank you, ladies, says Gillian. You're very welcome, Gillian. Thanks for sticking with us. And I think maybe, shall we all sign off by doing a giant Rachel Reeves eye roll?
I think she's going to start flicking her hair next as well.
Right. Well, we're now on Rachel watch. So next month when we do our live stream, let's see what we picked up from her. And we're going to make it a meme. So thanks for being with us, everybody. How lovely to hear all those nice comments. And we'll catch you all later.
Yeah.
And thanks for listening, everybody, to this replay of our live stream. If you'd like to watch the video of the actual live stream taking place, you'll find it on our YouTube channel. Our next live stream will be on the 24th of September, so join us for that if you'd like to. But don't forget, we've got a podcast out every Friday and usually a video premiere on a Tuesday night as well. So catch you later. Bye now.